The sky above Namaris 3 burned violet. Not the gentle purple of an Earth sunset, this was a deep liquid hue, swirling with auroral ribbons of turquoise that rippled from pole to pole. Twin crescent moons hung low over the horizon. The dunes below them were made not of sand, but of fine glass-bright crystals, each grain catching the starlight and throwing it back in sharp, scattered flashes. Sergeant Elias Rhane hated it here. His boots crunched on the mirrored dunes as he descended into the shallow valley, visor HUD painting tactical overlays in angry red. The air was thin and tasted metallic even through his rebreather. Above him, the dropship Kestrel hovered, engines whining, floodlights carving stark cones of light into the darkness. "Rhane, keep it tight," came Lieutenant Harrow's voice over comms, clipped and bored. "In and out. Recover the data core." "No sightseeing. I'm touched you think I'm here for the ambiance," Elias muttered. He was on a small mission, officially. Secure a crashed Car-3 courier pod, rumored to hold encrypted logs about the Empire's occupation of this sector. Unofficially, he was here because Alliance brass liked sending humans where things got suicidal. Humans bounce, they said. Humans improvise, or, as the more honest alien officers put it, humans are crazy enough to survive this. He crested the last dune and saw the wreck. The courier pod lay half-buried in the crystalline slope, its sleek obsidian hull cracked, one flank torn open like a wounded animal. Pale bioluminescent spores drifted in the air around it, glowing a faint blue. Strange twisted trees, more like coral than wood, rose nearby, their branches carrying hanging sacks of light like lanterns. His squad fanned out 3 species, 5 soldiers. A stoic, 4-armed Varrock, heavy named Stelm. 2 insectoid chur scouts chittering nervously. And Lieutenant Harrow herself, a slim, silver-eyed Car-3, with the effortless arrogance of the ruling species of this arm of the galaxy. "Heat signatures?" Harrow asked. Elias checked his scanner. "Pod interior is still warm. No major life signs. Maybe residual biotech. Good, we're here for the core, not survivors. Move." He swallowed the instinctive protest. Orders were orders. This was an enemy courier. The Car-3 Imperium might be technically their ally in this campaign, but the Empire had a reputation, ruthlessly efficient, fond of secret police and necessary pacifications. His own Earthside command wanted the logs to see which way the wind was really blowing. Elias stepped into the torn hull, rifle sweeping, HUD compensating as the light dimmed. The interior was a tangle of dangling conduits and pulsing organic cables. Car-3 ships were grown as much as they were built. Their tech half-living, always a little unnerving. A directional ping drew his eyes to the rear. "Found the core," he said. "Behind this bulkhead." A sound cut him off, a wet, ragged cough. He froze. "Harrow, I've got something else." "Possible survivor. Leave it," Harrow replied instantly. "This pod was flagged treasonous. We are not authorized to render aid. Retrieve the core and extract." Elias clenched his jaw. "You said the pod was logistics," he said. "Now it's treasonous?" There was a pause. Mission parameters changed. "Do your job, Sergeant." He followed the sound anyway. His rifle beam swept over the floor, around ruptured bone-like struts, past a shattered stasis pod, then stopped. Curled against the inner wall, half-covered in frosted biomass, was a woman. Car-3, but not like Harrow. Her skin was luminescent, a soft pearl tone etched with faint, shimmering lines that pulsed in time with her heartbeat. Her hair was a cascade of living tendrils like pale roots drifting in invisible water. One side of her torso was burned and blackened, her 4 delicate fingers clutching at the wound. Her lower pair of arms hung limp. Wide silver eyes met his. She shuddered. Please." Elias swore under his breath. "Harrow," he said slowly. "There's a civilian here. She's hurt. Badly. We can evac her to the Kestrel." "That is not a civilian." Harrow's tone was ice. "That's Lysai caste. Sensitive class. If the pod was treasonous, she's complicit." "You will stand down, Sergeant Rhane." The woman tried to rise and nearly collapsed. Elias dropped to one knee, sliding an arm under her shoulders to steady her. Her skin was hot and strangely soft, almost like warm sand under his gloved fingers. She looked at his human alliance patch, then at his face through the visor. "You're one of the Wildborn," she whispered, voice trembling but clear. "A human." "Yeah," he said. "Name's Elias. I'm supposed to pretend I didn't see you, her lips curled in a sad, desperate smile. Will you? He looked at her, at the panic in those silver eyes, at the way her burned skin flaked when she breathed too hard. He thought of Earth, of old stories his grandmother used to tell, about how you judge a person or a people by what they do for the powerless. Elias toggled the squad channel open. Respectfully, Lieutenant, he said. Go to hell. He cut the line before she could answer and scooped the alien woman up, cradling her against his chest. Outside, the violet sky pulsed, and far away, thunder rolled over the crystalline dunes. By the time Elias emerged from the wreck, the tension was thick enough to taste. Stelm had the data core slung over one massive shoulder, its black surface veined with faint green light. The Chur scouts pivoted their multifaceted eyes toward Elias, mandibles clicking. Lieutenant Harrow stood at the edge of the torn hole, gaze unreadable. Her silver eyes took in the wounded woman in Elias's arms, and her jaw clenched. Put her down, Harrow said. Now! Elias shifted his grip, feeling the woman's shallow, stuttering breaths against his chest. Not happening. She is Lysai, Harrow hissed. They are the psychic heart of the Imperium. If this pod carried treason data, she knows of it. We do not rescue her. We take the core and leave her for internal purity too. The woman in his arms flinched violently at the words, fingers digging into his armor. Internal purity, she whispered. Elias looked from her to Harrow. What's your name? He asked the woman, ignoring the lieutenant. She hesitated. Varai, okay Varai, you want to live? Tears welled in her eyes, strange silver droplets that rolled down her cheeks. Yes, he turned back to Harrow. That's good enough for me. Harrow took a step forward. Sergeant, this is a direct order. You are compromising the mission. Mission was to get the core, he said. We've got the core. I'm adding a side quest. Basic decency. Stelm rumbled, shifting his weight. Human, the Varrock said slowly. Disobeying the lieutenant will bring charges. Court-martial. Then I'll bring character witnesses, Elias shot back. Maybe the War Crimes Tribunal will be interested in why an Empire courier marked logistics suddenly turned treasonous when we got here. A cold wind swept over the dunes, making the crystalline surface sing in low, eerie tones. Harrow's nostrils flared. You don't understand, human. The Lysai carry the song of command. They see too much. If she was on this pod, she is dangerous. Elias arched a brow. So she's valuable intel and you want to leave her to die instead of debriefing her? For a moment, Harrow looked almost guilty. Then she shut it down. This conversation is over. Chur, take the core to the Kestrel. Stelm restrained the sergeant and, No, Varai whispered. The air around them suddenly changed. A thrumming pressure brushed against Elias's mind like fingers against glass. His vision distorted at the edges, colors sharpening. The crystal dunes hummed in response, their resonant song shifting pitch. Harrow gasped, staggering back. You dare! Varai's voice became layered, echoing in their heads as much as their ears. I will not go back to the Purifiers, she said. This human. He chose not to abandon me. I choose him. Then she slumped, the psychic pressure releasing. Elias almost dropped to one knee from the sudden emptiness. Stelm groaned, one huge hand to his head. For the record, he said thickly, I did not like that. Yeah, well, you're not on the menu, Elias muttered. He shifted Varai's weight again. We're wasting time. The pod's distress beacon might have pinged Empire patrols. We need to move. Harrow, either shoot me or help me get her on the ship. But decide now. The lieutenant's hand twitched over her sidearm. She held his gaze, then looked at Varai, at the branded sigil on the woman's wrist, the mark that meant she belonged to the deepest psychic caste of the Imperium. Something in Harrow's expression wavered. Finally, she spat on the ground. If we are discovered with her, I will say you compelled me. Human madness, human sentimentality. Sounds on brand. Elias allowed himself a thin smile. So we're agreed? Don't push it, Harrow snapped. Stelm, carry the core. Chur, perimeter watch. We move now. As they trudged back up the crystal slope toward the waiting dropship, Varai stirred weakly and whispered, Why did you choose me? Elias adjusted his grip, careful of her wound. Because everyone else chose not to, he said. And I'm tired of that story. She breathed out, a tiny, shaky laugh. Humans are strange. You have no idea, he replied. They almost made it. The Kestrel's ramp was just lowering when the first Empire gunship screamed over the horizon, engines carving a line of white-hot plasma through the violet sky. Elias heard it before he saw it, his instincts pinging danger like a second HUD. He spun, putting his body between Varai and the threat. Contacts, one of the Chur shrieked over comes. Imperium gunship 2-3. Bolts of emerald energy slammed into the dunes, exploding the crystalline surface into jagged shards. The ground beneath them vibrated like a struck gong. Move, move, Harrow shouted, sprinting up the ramp. Stelm, get that core aboard! Rhane! On it! Elias ran. He clutched Varai tight, her slight form cradled against his chest. The dunes turned treacherous underfoot as the glass shattered, each step sending up sprays of glittering shrapnel. Another blast detonated nearby, the concussion throwing him sideways. He twisted mid-air, taking the impact on his shoulder and rolling to shield her. His HUD flashed warnings. Armor integrity down. Minor fractures. Varai winced, her fingers tightening around his neck. You should leave me, she rasped. They want me. If you run... Yeah, that's not happening, he grunted, pushing to his feet. We're well past the return window on abandoning you. She stared at him, stunned. Even now, as death rained from the sky? He almost laughed at her expression. You really don't get humans, he said. We double down on bad decisions. It's half our charm. Gunships roared closer, dust and glass whipping in their wake. Harrow's voice shredded across the coms. Rhane, you won't make it to the ramp in time. Head for the canyon, we'll circle and... Stelm cut in, voice booming. Multiple target locks on the Kestrel. We must lift now or die. Then lift, Elias said, skidding down the far side of the dune. Ahead, narrow canyons of fused glass opened like veins in the terrain, winding black scars in the glowing landscape. We'll play tag from the ground. Are you insane? Harrow shouted. Short answer, yes. He dived into the canyon-esque shadow just as a barrage of plasma fire stitched across where he'd been. The gunships swooped overhead, too large to fit inside the glass ravines, forced to angle their shots at steep, imprecise trajectories. Energy blasts slammed into the canyon walls, cracks spiderwebbing through the translucent rock. Varai coughed, each breath a knife. You cannot outrun them forever. Don't need forever, Elias said, lungs burning. Just need long enough. Long enough for what? To figure out something stupid and impossible, he panted, and then do it anyway. That's kind of our thing. A wry, incredulous smile tugged at her lips. Humans are mad. And yet, he said, flashing her a grin, you're still hanging on? She opened her mouth to retort, then flinched as a psychic tremor rippled through her. What? He asked. The gunships, she whispered. They've linked to a local command node. Ground forces inbound, they will trap you in this canyon and... cleanse the area. Not a fan of cleansing, Elias muttered. Can you mess with their link? She hesitated. I'm Lysai. I was trained to be the voice of the song, to bind minds, to shape choices. But I defied them. The purifiers burned me for it. He glanced at her scorched side. Can you still use it? Her eyes glowed faintly, silver brightening. Yes, but if I reach too far, they will feel me. They will know I live. He smiled despite the situation. Welcome to Team Terrible Options Only. That's us. Pick the one with the highest chance of a cool story later. She huffed a weak laugh. You're impossible. Flatterer. Another shot rocked the canyon, showering them with shards. Elias ducked under an overhang, pressing her back against the still warm glass. He met her gaze. Varai, I can't shoot down gunships with charm. You, though, you've got something. She studied him, searching his face. No guile, no cold calculation. Just stubborn intent. Very well, she said softly. I will try. She lifted one trembling hand and pressed her palm against his helmet right over his brow. Trust me, she whispered. The world went away in silver. Then the images twisted. Varai stood in another chamber, this one dark, stinking of burned flesh. Purifier brands glowed white-hot, pressed into the skin of kneeling Lysai who had faltered, who had questioned. She watched one friend sister collapse, song shattered, eyes empty, Varai's own turn. The brand searing her side, her scream ricocheting through the psychic chorus. She broke from the song, pulled away, refused to bind another world to the Empire's will. Elias jerked as pain lanced his side, a phantom echo of her burn. "Damn," he gasped. "You went through that?" "Be quiet," Varai murmured aloud, though her voice was now everywhere in his mind. "I am weaving." He felt her attention extend outward, threads of silver reaching for the gunships above. He felt their pilots, disciplined, conditioned, humming with devotion to the Imperium and fear of failure. Varai brushed their link. For a moment she could have overridden them, turned the gunships on each other, made them suicide against the canyon walls. But someone else was there, a colder mind, a keen-edged blade of will, watching. "The Admiral is near," Varai whispered in his thoughts. Along with her words came an image, a towering Carthary in ceremonial armor, eyes like polished ice. "Admiral Serakh. He commands the Purifiers. He ordered my punishment. Tell him he's on my list," Elias muttered. "He already knows," she replied. "It is why he came in person." The psychic vision widened and Elias saw the larger pattern, not just gunships, but troop carriers inbound, and beyond them a massive cruiser in high orbit. The Empire hadn't just sent a recovery team, they'd sent an execution squad and maybe a fleet. He also saw something else. Data channels streaming between the crashed courier pod and a hidden relay buried under the planet's surface. Logs of planetary pacifications, orbital bombardments, sterilization campaigns, whole species written off as resource corrections. He felt Varai's shame and horror. She had been the voice giving those orders, believing the propaganda until the day she saw a city burn in her mind's eye and heard the screaming. "That's why you ran," Elias said softly, realizing. "You were going to leak this. Expose them." "Yes," she replied, voice trembling in both their heads. "The data core your people wanted? It is only a fraction. The true archive is in me." He blinked. Psychic black box, neat, terrifying, but neat. Outside, plasma blasts continued to rock the canyon, but less accurately now. Varai's subtle interference was nudging the targeting just enough to keep them alive. Elias felt her strain. Felt her burning through what little energy she had left, balancing on the edge of exposure. "Hey," he whispered inside the link. "Steady. You're not alone in here." Her presence turned toward his, surprised. "Your mind is loud, rude, and bright," she added, softer. "You burn, Elias Rhane, like a star too close." "Humans," he said with a mental shrug. "We don't have half a setting." She brushed against memories he couldn't, to hide a blue sky and the smell of rain on old concrete. A grandmother's wrinkled hand on his head, telling stories of resistance fighters. The first time he saw a Carthary warship blot out the stars. The rage that drove him into uniform. "What is this feeling?" Varai whispered. "Which one?" "When you saw the city on Vesta Prime burning," she said. "You were afraid, but you did not freeze. You ran toward the fire. Inside you were thinking, if not us, who? Responsibility," he said. "Stupidity, human combo pack. It feels like..." She searched for the word, tasting it in his mind. "Love, not for one person. For everyone." "Yeah," he said quietly. "We suck at boundaries." She laughed weakly, the sound echoing through both their minds and the canyon. Despite everything, the gunships overhead, the encroaching troops, something warm unfurled between them. Trust, a fragile thread but real. Then Harrow's voice crackled over Combs, breaking the moment. "Rhane! You still breathing? You reckless idiot!" He snapped back to the physical. "The canyon, the dust, the taste of ozone. Still here, Lieutenant. How's the sky?" "On fire," she said, "but we shook 2 of the gunships. We're circling back. Be advised, Empire dropships are landing near your position. They're deploying Purifier ground squads." "Of course they are," Elias muttered. Varai squeezed his arm weakly. "Purifiers don't take prisoners." "Funny," he said, lifting her as he started to move again, heading deeper into the canyon. Neither do I, but I make exceptions. For traitors? She asked wryly. For people who've had a really bad week. He felt her smile inside his head, small and incredulous and beautiful. Elias, she said, if we survive this, I do not think my week will have been bad at all. The canyon broadened ahead, opening into a hidden basin. Elias stopped, blinking. In the center of the basin rose a structure grown from the same glass crystal as the dunes, but shaped intentional. Tall spires curled together like fingers cupping a flame. Bioluminescent vines twined through them, casting soft blues and greens over intricate carvings. It's beautiful, he breathed. Varai's eyes widened. A Namaris heart temple. I thought the Empire destroyed them all. Guess they missed one. Elias scanned quickly. No immediate heat signatures inside. No power signatures either, aside from the low hum of the structure itself. Can this thing help us? Perhaps, she said. All threaded through her voice. The Namarisi were old when my people first reached the stars. Their temples amplify mind songs, heal wounds, bind hearts. Bind hearts? He repeated. Not literally, she said, then amended. Sometimes literally. He gave her a look. What? It is an imprecise art. No, that's a terrible explanation, he said. But we're out of alternatives. Let's go. He carried her up the short, worn steps and ducked under an arch, etched with symbols that glowed as they passed. Inside, the air was cooler, smelling faintly of something like cinnamon and ozone. The main chamber was circular, with a shallow basin in the center filled with shimmering liquid light. Around it, carved seats faced inward like a council or choir. Above, the open roof framed the twin moons in the raging violet sky. Place me by the pool, Varai whispered. He obeyed, kneeling to lower her so her wounded side faced the glowing basin. The light intensified as she neared, tendrils of radiance rising like mist to brush her skin. Incredible, she murmured, reaching out with trembling fingers. They left the well of minds intact. The what now? The Namarisi believed all consciousnesses are drops from a single ocean, she said. Their heart temples tap into that current. Here, intent shapes reality more easily. Healing, bonding, insight. Cool, Elias said. Also terrifying. That's today's theme, I guess. She smiled faintly, then nodded at his helmet. You must remove this. Pretty forward for a first date, he joked, trying to keep the mood light as his fingers unclasped the seals. The helmet hissed as it came free, and the raw air of Namaris hit his face thin, metallic, but clean. Varai looked at him without the reflective barrier between them for the first time. He had dark hair plastered to his forehead with sweat, a scar across his left eyebrow, and eyes the color of old whiskey. He was tired, bruised, worried, and still looking at her like she was the most important thing in the room. She swallowed. You are very strange looking, he chuckled. You're not exactly baseline yourself. She shifted, suppressing a wince as the pool's light curled more insistently around her wound. The ritual is simple, she said. We must both place a hand in the well and focus on a shared intention. Like, don't die? Too diffuse, she said, lips quirking. Pick something. Sharper. He thought about it, staring at the liquid light. It was warm somehow, even from a distance. The surface stirred, though there was no wind. Finally, he said, okay, how about we live? We expose the Empire's crimes. We protect each other. Her gaze softened. That is 3 intentions. They're a match set. She hesitated, then nodded. Very well, Elias Rhane of Earth. I will accept your stubborn trilogy. They each extended a hand. When their fingers touched the surface, the light surged. It flowed up their arms in bright currents, threading through veins, nerves, thoughts. Elias gasped as the temple's latent psychic field latched onto their existing link and amplified it 100-fold. Suddenly, there was no Elias and Varai. There was we. He saw himself through her eyes, a strange, fierce creature, small by Carthary standards but burning with an intensity that frightened and fascinated her. He saw how she'd felt when he first lifted her in the wreck, expecting indifference and finding defiance on her behalf instead. She saw herself through his brilliant, brave, weighed down by guilt but still choosing to fight. He realized with a start that he already trusted her more than some of his own commanders. Their thoughts tangled. Fear. Hope. To action. Pain. A shared, stubborn refusal to bow to monsters. Memories flickered. His childhood on Earth. Her training in the crystalline halls. His first combat drop. Her first psionic choir performance. Late nights staring at different stars, wondering if they were alone in wanting something kinder. The well beneath their hands responded. Light poured into Varai's wound, knitting burned flesh, easing the deep psychic scars left by the Purifier brand. Elias felt the echo of that healing in his own side. Old pains he'd ignored loosening, a tightness in his chest he hadn't known was there. Easing, he also felt something else, a quiet slotting into place. As if some part of him had been waiting, not for her specifically, but for someone who met him halfway on that reckless road between duty and compassion. Varai felt it too. Is this the binding? She whispered in their joined thoughts. Feels more like alignment, he replied. Like we were vectors pointing similar directions and the temple just snapped us into lock. That is a very human way to describe a miracle. Engineering is my love language. She laughed, a bright sound that echoed in his bones. Outside, the low whine of dropship engines grew louder. The ritual's glow dimmed, leaving them breathless, hands still in the cooling light. How do you feel? Elias asked aloud. Varai flexed her fingers. Her burned side was now a pattern of faint, luminous scars, still tender but no longer crippling. Strength had returned to her limbs. Her eyes glowed a little brighter. Alive, she said. And not alone. He squeezed her hand. Good, because we've got company. As if on cue, the temple's entrance darkened. A squad of armored Carthary purifiers stepped in, rifles leveled, visors reflecting the pool's afterglow. Their armor bore the sigil of a burning star in chains. And behind them, ducking under the arch, came Admiral Serakh. He was tall even for a Carthary, his skin a darker gunmetal hue, eyes like polished chrome. His armor was ceremonial black and silver, edged with faintly pulsing glyphs. He took in the scene, the human, the Lysai traitor, the awakened heart temple, with a slow, predatory smile. Elias and Varai, he said, voice smooth and cold. You have caused me quite a lot of inconvenience. Varai's hand tightened around Elias's. Elias rose, positioning himself slightly in front of her, though they both knew a man and a rifle were not ideal odds against an admiral and his squad. Still, humans don't do ideal odds.